Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Muhammad Atif and this is the summary of today's lesson. Today we resumed our lesson English student book, lesson number 3, past and present, page number 41, exercise 5. In previous lesson we discussed exercise 1 to 4 and today we resumed our lesson from exercise 5 and I discussed the question with the class in which I have to ask to the students to share their opinions about which home appliances old people use in 1910, especially in old London. So the students participated and they discussed related to this exercise 4, in which you can see different home appliances. So they discussed that in according to the students, in their opinion, they said that in old London people used iron and cooker, and some students also thought that some of in old London they have might used black and white television. So they guessed three home appliances, 4, 3, and 6. So I encourage the students to use the opinion phrases like I think that and I'm sure that and according to me, in my point of view. So I encourage the students to use these phrases to express their opinions. So after that we listen to the exercise 6, track 16. Listen to the rest of Mia's presentation and check your answers of exercise 5. So we discussed the answers after listening to the track. I'm going to include the track in the summary video so the other students also can understand and tally their answers as well. So kindly just give me a moment. Track 16.
Track 16. Part 3.
100 years ago, English homes were very different from homes today. There was no electricity, so people cooked on stoves powered by oil or wood. There weren't any dishwashers to wash the pots and pans, or microwaves to heat food quickly either, so life was much more difficult than it is today. There were no televisions, imagine that, and no mobile phones. People washed clothes by hand because there weren't any washing machines, and some homes had oil irons to press clothes.
So that was the track 16, and after the track we discussed our answers, and you can say that we corrected our answers for exercise 5. So after that we discussed activities 7, but before we discuss the activity 7 we have to discuss the past simple, regular and irregular form, and for that purpose I included a short tutorial video during the lesson. I'm going to include it right now again for the summary purpose so you can understand it more better. If you missed any part of the video during the lesson, during the class, you have a chance to watch it again.
Welcome to English Grammar Spot. This lesson is about the past simple. I'm going to show you how to form a past simple and when to use a past simple. But before we get started, it's good to know that in the English language we have regular verbs and irregular verbs, and it is advisable that you study the most commonly used irregular verbs. Now let's get started. Take a look at these sentences. I walked to school yesterday and he paid for dinner last week. Both these sentences are in the past simple tense. How to form a past simple? For the regular verbs, we simply use the infinitive form of the verb and we add ed. I kicked the ball. You closed the door. He wiped the table. She cooked dinner. And it rained yesterday for the singular forms. And for the plural forms, we walked to school. You watched the tennis match. They marked the tests. We need to pay extra attention to
Okay, so for regular verbs, the verbs we can form the past simple form of the verb with the help of just ed. We call them regular verbs. For example, walked,
school. You
watched,
watched the tennis match.
and marked. So for those verbs, we can add ed and make them past simple tense. Okay, we call them regular verbs because we do not change the spellings. Okay, and we just add ed in the end to make them past simple, so we call them regular verbs. And for the verbs ends in an e, for example, live, close, and wipe, these three verbs you can see ends in e. So what we do, we just write the infinitive form or the base form of the verb, and we just add d because e is already present there. So it will be like lived and closed. But we do not add another d like other regular verbs because we have already one e in an end. So the next rule is for the regular verbs, verbs ending in a y. We have two types of alphabets, vowels and consonants. Vowel alphabets are A, E, I, O, U, and the other alphabets called consonant. So we for the verbs ends in a y, but before y they have a consonant like P, V, D. Okay, for these verbs we change y into I and then we add ed to make them past simple, like spy, spied, envy, envied, study, studied. And for irregular verbs, there is no rule for irregular verb. You just need to memorize them to make them past simple. Okay, and every irregular verb has a unique past simple form. For example, built, built, teach, taught, run, ran. So you can see that we change the spelling and we form a unique past simple form with the help of the present verbs or base form of the verbs. So there is no set rule for the irregular verbs except you have to memorize them. For the question, okay, we start our question with to do, past form of to do, helping verb. So the past form of to do is did, and then we add the base form of the verb. But before base form of the verb, we use subject. So the question will be like, did she talk to him this morning? Did you ride your bicycle yesterday? So for negation, for negative sentences, we use not. We just add not after did. So it became didn't. And we use the base form of the verb. This is the structure. This is the structure, and these are the examples of the question for the negation sentence, like I didn't want to come over last night. So we start our sentence with subject, then did, not, short form didn't, then base form of the verb want, and then the rest of the sentence. So the rule for the condition in which we can use past simple tense is for things that happened at a specific time in the past. So our today's lesson was
So we
about
need
how to change regular and irregular verbs into a past simple tense. So that was the explanation about the past simple tense. After that, we have a pronunciation exercise to identify the difference between the sound of ed, because we learned that for regular verbs, our verb in past simple ends in ed. Okay, so we have to identify three different types of sounds. Uh, so I'm going to play the track 17 to solve exercise 7, which we already discussed in during the lesson. So you can see
Track 17. Kneaded, painted, cooked, washed, walked, travelled, cleaned, used.
okay, so that was the track, and then we discussed the different sounds of ed. The first sound is id, second one is t, and third one is b. So we discussed during the lesson, and then I displayed the answers, which I'm going to display it again right now. So these are the bifurcation of different sounds of ed. You can also note down. So that was the today's lesson. So thank you so much for your participation, and see you in next lesson. Till then, take care. Allah Hafiz.